Today we are talking about GCSE, Foundation and Higher, and the various differences that exist between the two papers.
The foundation tier and the higher tier. So there's two tiers for the majority of subjects. I remember you said English,
there's just one sort of higher tier, but no foundation tier, which is unfortunate because I think it could do with the foundation tier. So we've got higher and foundation. There are various differences between them in terms of content and I think depth, I think is the best word to describe it. There used to be an intermediate paper.
I remember.
When we were young, I think there's a foundation, an intermediate and a higher, or advanced, I think they called it then.
It was intermediate, I believe.
I think no, but the higher used to be advanced, didn't it?
I thought, wasn't it still higher? Wasn't it higher, intermediate and foundation?
I think so. But there were three tiers. I think maybe. What did you think of that?
I thought that was. I thought that was quite good actually. And I liked having one paper that was in between the two.
Because we do have a lot of students that I think sit on that.
Maybe. Do you feel like we could do with one now? So maybe.
Yes, but then I understand why they don't do that now, because it just makes it like.
Well, should we speak about grades then, and then maybe people who don't understand can get an idea. With the foundations here, that's graded from 1 to 5, as in the highest that you can get is a grade 5 if you're sitting in the foundation tier.
A 4 is a pass,
A 4 is a pass, yeah. If you look in front of John's face now, you'll see a table listing the number grades and their corresponding
letter grades
based on the old grading system. So the foundation tier goes from 1 to 5. The higher tier goes from grades 4 to 9. We have 5 main topics for both tiers. We'll put them up on the screen somewhere here, probably on John's face again. But they are number, algebra, ratio and proportion, and rates of change, geometry and measure, and probability and stats. So that those get tested across both tiers, but there's a difference in weightings. Maybe do you want to discuss the difference in the weightings for each section?
Number is more of is given more emphasis in the foundation paper, which kind of makes sense because a lot of the higher students would have gone they're sort of concentrating not so much on calculation but the more theoretical side.
Yeah.
Maths. And then you've got a difference in algebra. Because obviously that's more articulated in the higher paper than in the foundation paper.
There's a stronger weighting.
Yeah. Which totally makes sense. You've got ratio and proportion and rates of change. That's given more emphasis in the foundation paper, which again, I guess makes sense because it's pretty practical to know about ratio and proportion.
Well, yeah. Everyday life, we tend to use ratios, proportions, fractions, decimals.
But statistics and probability, you've got a similar weighting. I guess it's one of the most useful branches of maths in the modern world that we live in.
I think it is,
and
definitely,
the ability to read scales and graphs and interpret data is very important. So you find across both tiers, they've both got that emphasis. So those are the sort of main difference in the weightings, but obviously there's some content differences as well. So you find that in the higher paper, you go into a topic in a lot more depth. So even though on the surface there doesn't seem to be that much of a difference in terms of the amount of content that is covered, it's much greater in the higher paper.
Yeah, I mean, to give you an example, vectors, you'll find typically more vector proof questions in the higher paper compared to the foundation. As another example, you'll find across those 5 topic areas, there's obviously subtopics, and some come up in the higher tier that don't come up in the foundation. For example, surds will come under the number section, but in the higher tier that doesn't get tested in the foundation tier. So there's various little differences like that. But I do feel that both papers are ideally, placed for each. They're ideally made, developed, and targeted for each group.
Yeah,
I feel they're at an appropriate level of difficulty.
I think in some ways the foundation is sometimes too tricky because I mean I think about when I put myself in the shoes of a foundation student, they're generally not particularly strong at maths, so they sometimes some of these like learning about vectors and things like that I think might and angles in polygons and stuff like that. Those types of topics, I mean, I always have students struggle in those topics year on year, and I always think, well, maybe it's, even though it's trying to be as practical as possible, sometimes I think it's too much for them. Whereas like concentrate on those really core basic math skills that everyone should be able to do, I think should be the domain of the foundation paper. But I don't know, like you probably have a different view on it.
No, I get what you're saying. I think we've seen like a fair few sort of number of students that find the foundation paper challenging.
Yeah.
So yeah, I sort of I concur.
Yeah.
But like we were saying, going back to the additional tier, I'm sort of maybe contradicting myself. But even though we said that they are sort of well targeted at each group, I do feel like having an additional paper in there, because we've also seen students who are maybe not quite, they'd struggle to get like a 6 or a 7 on a higher paper. But I feel like if there was a paper that was in between, where there was a stronger weighting to sort of more grade 6 and grade 7 questions, I feel like you'd find a fair sort of proportion
of students, that
can attain those grades.
I've certainly had some foundation students at like the top end that could probably do it in intermediate
paper and get a good grade.
And probably get a 6 or something like that.
And then what you could maybe do is adjust the higher paper. Again, gear it more towards your grade 7 to 9 questions.
Yeah, and have like the A-level stream. Sort of, because I think a lot depends on like whether you want to take maths further. So a lot of students who want to take maths further into A-level, I think it'd be beneficial to stretch them
for them to do that advanced / higher paper. Yeah.
I think an important part of the process is obviously that you'll need resources, and so resourcing is an important part of optimizing your performance in an exam.
Mm-hmm.
So we like to recommend certain books, depending on whether you're a foundation student or a higher student. So we've got some here. A lot of these are geared towards Edexcel because we get so many Edexcel students over, say, AQA.
The majority of our, at least for maths, the majority of our GCSE students tend to.
And it is the most sort of popular exam board for maths. So just to go through a few of the things, and actually it might be good to sort of bring the higher books across as well.
So this let me take this one. This is a Pearson book. This is actually the older edition, but it's still good. There is a new edition of this book. It's, I believe, been split into 2 because that's what they've done with the higher. I can show you the higher books.
So this is the higher.
Again, these are 2 more Pearson books.
Yeah.
So this has actually been split into 2 books, book 1 and book 2, even though that's another book 1. But yeah, essentially they've split this. Do we have the old book?
The old book? Oh, no, I haven't got it with me. But they've split this book into two. I guess like the purpose of this is because it's endorsed by the exam board.
By the exam board.
Then you get more exam style questions
in
that
there, yeah.
are in line with the board. But I feel like sometimes the explanations are a little thin.
That's what we're here for.
Yes. No, but I mean, for instance, we often we usually recommend that they have this book as well. And I feel like some topics like
I really like that. Yeah. So this book I really like for just pure brute sort of calculation.
So it's the Michael Wyatt
Elmwood, isn't it?
Essential Maths series. So you got it's got 4 to 9 on it, so you can tell it's higher. It's blue. Whereas the foundation, I mean, you can see the difference in terms of like the amount of content. Like, so you've got the foundation book here, and then you've got the higher book. See the difference. I mean, a lot of the topics are the same, but then this handles it in so much more depth. I really, really like the way this book works through topics. Like the way that it's set out and broken down.
Yeah, I use that quite a lot for topics like changing the subject, quadratic equations, because there's so many questions in there.
Yeah,
I find it.
I tend to do this book first and then move to this one once they've got a. Oh, wait a minute, sorry. So starting with this book and then moving to these for more sort of exam style based practice.
Check out the links for these books in the video description below.
Also, I do think it's good to have some exam practice. So I've got by no means are these the only sort of exam papers available and that kind of thing. So, but you've got the revised Edexcel mathematics series. So this is the foundation one. It's green. Seems to be like green.
Their colour.
Yeah, colour coded.
Their colour scheme. Green for foundation, blue for higher.
And then you've got the blue ones here. Yeah, for the higher. And you've got something that I like about this as well is it links to, so questions in here will link to the revision guide. Let me have a look.
Believe there are QR codes inside, that link to some videos,
Let me have a look.
I think in the revision guide, yes.
So you've got, in the revision guide, you've got linked videos to show you how to solve this problem and that kind of thing, which I think is quite a useful thing to have. So those are some additional things that can help you out. I think also that this might be quite good if you don't have that much time. Never be in that position. And don't try not to be in this position. But if you were in this position, going through a revision guide like this, it's a lot less than this. I don't think it will be as good as going through this. Like, I don't think anything can replace going through a book like this over a book like this. But if you don't have that much time, this will tackle a lot of topics quite quickly and could be good for revision. And it's quite friendly in its presentation. So those are our sort of resources that we'd typically recommend. Obviously, you've got different exam boards. So, like for instance, AQA,
OCR.
But we don't have that many students that tend to do AQA. Thus, we don't carry many of the resources with us. But they're available on the website, so in the book list.
Okay, so for both tiers, foundation and higher, there are 3 papers. Paper 1 is the non-calculator paper, and papers 2 and 3 are the calculator papers. There are 80 marks for each paper, so 240 marks in total. And you will be given a formula sheet this year. Again, that's for both foundation and the higher tier. So it might be a good idea to take a look at the formula sheet to see what you're given. It'll also give you an idea of what you're not given and what you need to sort of make sure you memorize and learn.
So schools can differ in this regard, but usually you find that by the end of year 10, the school's definitely got an idea of whether a student's doing foundation art or higher papers, yeah?
Yes.
And typically even before that. they'll because if you're in a lower set, you're quite likely to be doing foundation, and then if you're in a higher set, you're quite likely to be doing higher. Yeah, typically the school will have an idea of whether you're doing foundation or higher, but we have found that sometimes schools make a little bit of a mistake, and they may put someone who probably should be doing a foundation paper in for the higher paper when it's probably not the right option. And taking the foundation paper would be a better option. It would increase the probability that they'd pass. Because obviously, even though the foundation paper covers those grades 4 and 5, and the higher paper does a crossover and it covers those grades 4 to 9, it's harder to get a 4 in a higher paper than it is to get a 4 in a foundation paper.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you can sit at home, do some practice papers, and if you're finding, let's say you're doing some higher papers, if you're finding you're really struggling to sort of get beyond 10 marks, then that's probably a strong sign that it may be better to do the foundation paper. Yeah. Don't sort of take it as a negative. Be realistic. Look at the amount of time that you have. Look at all of the other subjects that you've got to revise for. At the very least, you want to make sure that you're able to get a pass. So if that means doing the foundation tier rather than the higher tier, then that's what you should.
Yeah. There's no shame in any decision that you come to that, because you just got to be realistic in those sort of situations. I mean, there are a number of traits that I think like higher students have, they tend to have not struggled that much with maths throughout, their previous years and stuff like that. Foundation students, however, have generally found maths or mathematics quite difficult throughout their school life. And also, I've found that quite a lot of people who go down the vocational route at college tend to end up doing foundation papers. But I mean, that's by no means a sort of hard and fast rule. You've just got to do what's best for you in that situation. If you have any concerns and you're taking the higher paper and you feel like you're having a lot of difficulty keeping up with the content, then speak to your teacher to see if maybe it's worth stepping down, or if your teacher believes that you can do it, find out what steps you'll need to take to reach that level.
Yeah, and on the other hand too, if the only reason you're getting low scores is because you're simply not putting enough work in, then you use that to also be realistic and honest with yourself. Make sure then you change your study habits, get your head down and start working. If that is literally the only reason, then start working.
And especially if you want to take maths further and take it to A level, work really, really hard at your GCSE and aim for those top grades, because you'll find the transition much easier. We find that people who say they get like a 7, even sometimes an 8 at GCSE, they still struggle with that transition to A level. So you really want to aim for a 9 if you're thinking of taking maths to a higher level.
Yeah, no, not just maths. I'd say
anything,
any subject really.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Hopefully that was helpful, and if you've got any questions, leave a comment. Check out the links in the description. There's a number of useful things down there. We've bombarded our description with links, so please check them out. They'll be useful for you in your journey, in your maths GCSE journey.